And I was using the travel and the distance and the staying in hotels for an excuse. And there was one day, I can't believe I'm even telling this story, but there was one day,
Sally, how did you find Carnivore?
I actually started on keto first. So I've been doing keto since June of 2021. So it's been 3 years, and I lost 60 pounds on keto pretty quickly. Um, and then I discovered that I'm a food addict and I'm a carb addict, and that's what I hear a lot of people talking about. So I lost those 60 pounds, and I kept it off pretty successfully for about 2 years, 2.5 years. And then last summer, I went on a couple vacations, and I started a new job. And so, starting a new job, you end a job, and I found myself consistently cheating. So I'd be spending half the day, half the week in keto, half the week out of keto, and we all know that's the worst thing you can do. And I had this mentality, which is so wrong, and it's so easy for me to see now. And I knew it was wrong at the time, but I had this mentality that if I would cheat on keto, rather than getting right back on it, I threw in the towel, and I'm like, well, I've already cheated for the day. And, so I'd have that ice cream, at nighttime. And so that led me to gaining a little bit of weight back. I probably gained 25 pounds back. And with that, becomes all the other problems. So the reason I got on keto, I had a girlfriend doing it, and she had a lot of success. And I knew several other people who were doing it and had success, but I didn't really know that much about it, and I didn't think that I could be successful. And what happened was I was working out of town. So I was commuting for my job about 2.5 hours away. And I physically got to the point where I could not do my job. And I was using the travel and the distance and the staying in hotels for an excuse. And there was one day, I can't believe I'm even telling this story, but there was one day, this is what really got me to get serious, that I was out on a job site with a contractor. I design swimming pools for a living. So I was walking this job site, and it was new construction, and the contractor had to help me up this board, this ramp to get into the house, because the house wasn't finished. And when we got done talking, I couldn't get out of the house, and I couldn't come back down the ramp. I have a bad knee, which is a lot better now. And so I had to sit down to get out of the house. And when I went to sit down, I fell backwards. And that was one of the most humiliating things that has ever happened to me. And I got in the car. I'm getting a little emotional even talking about it, but I got in the car, and I just said to myself, Sally, there's no more excuses. You cannot use the justification that you're working out of town to not do something about your health. So it wasn't only just about weight for me, but it was about feeling good. I knew if I didn't do something, I was going to end up being disabled in a year and not even being able to walk around. So I literally, that day, I drove away from that job site. I made the commitment. I'm jumping into keto. And I think a lot of people who are on carnivore probably started in keto. And I found Dr. Berry, and, initially I was watching Dr. Berg, and, but I really followed Dr. Berry primarily through that. And then about a year ago, this same girlfriend and I, we decided to do beef, butter, bacon, eggs, so I jumped into that about a year ago. First of all, we fasted. We did a 72-hour fast, and then we made the commitment to do 1 week, because we didn't know how hard it was going to be. So we both committed to do 1 week of beef, butter, bacon, eggs. And I'm telling you, the oxalate dumping, I literally stopped after about the 6th or 7th day. I ended up with some things that I did have to go to the doctor for, and so that kept me, away from jumping into carnivore. But it got to be, I started carnivore March 1st, and it got to be February, and I said, February is going to be fasting February, Sally. You're going to fast, you're going to get back on track. And, I just didn't do it. So March 1st came around, and I said, I'm just going to go full board into carnivore, because I knew if I did that, I knew when I did beef, butter, bacon, eggs, even though I only did it for that short amount of time, I wasn't hungry. I was satiated, like it helped even more with my bloating, all those things. And I initially was going to try to ease into it, but when I do something, I don't do it halfway. So I'm just going to jump in. So I made that commitment on March 1st to jump back in and do carnivore. And I originally was going to start out and ease my way into it. And I'm just not that type of personality. I got a couple days into it and I'm like, no, I'm doing this. And I had a lot of knee pain that had come back. My knee pain is completely gone. And I have bulging discs in my neck, and I would wake up in the morning and I'd have intense shoulder pain, to the point where when I rolled over in bed, it would wake me up, and that's gone. So even though I've only been on it, I think today's day 102, I spent all day Sunday in my garden. I hadn't been in the garden in 4 years to be able to do any physical work, and I was able to be on my feet and work out in my garden the entire day. And that just was such a relief to me, because I haven't done a lot of exercise because of the knee issue. And that showed me that I can start back into that, like I can ease my way back in to doing that. I was listening to one of your interviews earlier today. And I don't think I'm maybe not eating enough, or not getting enough protein. And it was the person that was talking about how it helped her to make sure she was getting enough protein to be able to get back in the gym and to get on track. And so if I can do those things too, then that's just going to increase the mobility in my knee and make it that much stronger and make me that much healthier. So I went into this with the mindset of, I'm going to do the 90-day carnivore challenge, and then I'm going to go back to keto. And the amazing thing about carnivore is it not only changes you physically, it changes you mentally, because now I have no interest in going back into keto, and I have no interest in the ice cream that I was addicted to, and the carbs. And I truly didn't know that I was a carb addict. And I should have picked up on that. I think when you say the term addiction, it comes with some stigma. And I'm going to say that because I've been clean for 17 years. So I have a pretty crazy story, and I know that's not what this is about, but addiction, it's part of my makeup, right? And it took me a long time to get clean and stay clean. And when I look back on this now, food was my first addiction, because even I grew up and I was an athlete and played all the sports, and I was thin. And then I hit adolescence and I gained 25 pounds. And it's been that constant battle through my adult life. I mean, I have tried every diet that there is. I've tried Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem. I was vegetarian, vegan for about 2.5 years. And I mean, that about made me crazy, trying to lose weight and trying to regain my mental health and regain by juicing. And I look back on that now, and it's ludicrous the things that we're willing to go through to try to get results, but we don't really have the answers. And part of that I'm going to blame on the medical community too, and what's been put out there, because everybody's following the standard American diet. Everybody's following what the doctors are telling us to eat. And the biggest kickback I get from people when I'm telling them I'm on carnivore, they're like, you don't eat fruits and veggies? And I'm like, no. They're like, what do you eat? I'm like, meat. I eat meat and eggs and bacon, and I get pushback from people. And it's just, we've all been indoctrinated, and there's big money and big pharma. I hope it's okay that I say that, but there is. And but when I transitioned to doing carnivore this year, I also transitioned. I watch a lot of Dr. Shafee. I watch Sean Baker. I watch, Steak and Butter Gal. So I've kind of switched from the keto community into the carnivore community. And I hear other people in the community talk about the same thing. One of the things that frustrates me the most are the the people that come on the chats and the carnivore police, that attack others for you're not doing carnivore the way I'm doing it, so you're not doing it right. So I had to learn to let some of that go, because I do eat chicken occasionally, and I'm not doing the lion diet, but I'm doing carnivore, and I'm doing what works for me. It is primarily beef. That's my main source of protein and fat. In fact, today I picked up a half of a cow. It's in my freezer. So it's the third time I've done it, and that gives me food for a year. So it gives me steak and hamburger, and I bought myself a smoker. I have a grill. So I don't ever get tired of the way of the food, or preparing the same things. I could have a ribeye every day of the week and not ever get tired of it. It's just
Yeah. So how are you eating day to day? Like, are you doing 3 meals, 2 meals?
So I typically do 2. I usually have my first meal around 10. And then I try to eat no later than like 4 o'clock for dinner. So probably 4 days a week that consists of having eggs and bacon for breakfast. And then at nighttime, it's steak or hamburger. I'll smoke a brisket on the grill. I do pulled pork sometimes. So I try to mix it up. I don't have fish a lot, but it's primarily beef. That's my favorite anyway. Even before I started carnivore, I grew up in central Illinois farm country. So I've always, had a love of beef, which I'm grateful for, because I see some people who have started carnivore and they had an aversion to meat in the beginning. And I'm grateful I don't have that. I love it. So now I have a freezer full.
Yeah, nice. So, just to take a step back, you talked about how you've done Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, you've been vegan, that kind of thing. What's the number one problem you experience with those kind of ways of eating? Was it like constant hunger or constant need to do
I think it's
things, or?
constant. They're not sustainable, So, I think those programs have some success because if you restrict calories, you will lose weight. But, realistically, how long can you do that for? I found myself on all those diets always wondering when's the next time I'm going to eat, or when is the next cheat day going to be, and that's the mentality that carnivores helped me with, is I'm not looking for any cheat days now, and even when I was in keto, I was looking for cheat days. But, specifically when I was vegetarian, in the last 6 months of that, I was vegan. I just was a different person. I was angry. I was irritable all the time. I was hungry all the time. When can I eat? What can I eat that's going to satisfy me? The carnivore diet is so satiating. That's what makes it successful. Not only does it give us the proper nutrients that we need for our bodies, but it's also very satiating, so I'm not hungry. And the cool thing about carnivore is if I'm hungry, I can eat, so if I ever get hungry, I don't snack, and that's one thing I used to do too. On keto, I would find myself, snacking. And when I started keto, I would eat those keto approved, so to speak, keto approved net carbs, which it stopped working for me eating those things, but it worked initially, and it's so I'm not dogging keto at all. I'm grateful for it because it got me to where I am, and it got me into carnivore, and it got me away from my food addictions and the sugar addiction, specifically. So I'm not looking to have a cheat day. And, whereas a year ago, I'm going to the beach this week, so I'm going to be able to cheat. Well, you pay for that right away. I don't like the inflammation or being bloated, when you eat something. And that's the other thing with carnivore that I found. Like in the beginning, I was using a lot of different spices, and carnivore is essentially an elimination diet, right? And so you find out what sensitivities you have and what you don't. And I'm finding I don't have dairy at all, because I didn't know that it bothered me, but it does. So if I have heavy cream, or if I have sour cream or cream cheese, it bothers me. The only dairy that I'm consuming now is butter, and if that's considered dairy, but the butter doesn't bother me. some of the spices, I've had to cut back on, or make my own blends if I want to season a steak or something, because it'll cause some gastrointestinal issues. And that's really where it hits me the most is the gastrointestinal. I can tell right away when I wake up in the morning if something that I had the day before bothered me. So, the longer I go, I guess I am getting more and more even toward like doing the Lion diet, because it has, even over the course of 100 days, become a little bit more restrictive for me as to what I'm eating, just because I want to feel good. You start to feel good. You sleep better.
Does it feel restrictive though?
It doesn't feel restrictive. No. I thought it would at first. And that's why I said I went in with the mentality of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the 90-day challenge. And then I'm going to go back to, carnivore. But it does not feel restrictive at all. And that's what I was talking about. That's why I bought the smoker, and I have a grill, and I have an air fryer, and I'll cook foods in a variety of different ways. There's a lot of things you can do with carnivore. There's a lot of things you can do with hamburger to make it taste different, just if you need that variety. And some people don't, and I'm finding the longer I go, the more I just want to have a ribeye every day. That's my favorite, is to do a ribeye on the grill.
So, for the uninitiated person that's watching, they might be looking at this and go, well, I've done Weight Watchers before, I've done different diets here, there, and everywhere, and I understand how I can lose some weight, and it is all about restriction. So what is it that's different with this carnivore thing, that there is no restriction about, how much you can eat?
And that's what I try. When I do try to educate people, I try to educate them that when you're doing carnivore and you're not feeding your body with carbohydrates, then your body has to burn fuel for its source, for its energy, because people do ask me like, well, I've done Atkins before. And I'm like, Atkins is not carnivore. They're very different. There's a very big difference between low carnivore, being in ketosis, and like having your body burn fat for your fuel. And so usually when I can explain that to people, they can at least understand it. Whether they do it or not, that's another thing. But they can understand the fact that if you're not giving your body carbohydrates, your body has to have a fuel source, right? So it's burning the fat. And I told people this when I first started keto, and I don't even know how to explain it, but it was almost like I could physically feel myself losing weight on the keto. It was, I could physically feel the morphology in my body changing, for like the first 2 months that I did keto. I don't feel that now, but I did initially, probably because I had a substantial amount of weight to lose. I would like to lose another 15 to 20 pounds. I've kind of hit a plateau. I always get to the weight that I am right now, and I hit a plateau. And in the past, I gave up, or like a year ago and last summer when I was cheating a lot, I just kind of caved into, my food addictions, and I'm not doing it this time. So I know that at some point that will pass, and I can probably do some things, to alter my diet to kickstart it, or, whether I do fasting or I do one meal a day. I know there's some things that I can do to step it up to get past the plateau. I'm under, today especially showed me a lot about my food addiction. I've had a really rough day. I'm trying not to let that show, but it's been a very, very difficult day. And now it's showing, and that's okay. But I mean, I was driving home, and I thought about cheating, Yeah, I thought about two things. I thought about using, which is not an option because I've been clean for almost 18 years. And the second option was food addiction. And I didn't stop anywhere, and I'm not going to cheat, but it was, I haven't had that kind of pull on me to cheat on the carnivore diet. And I haven't had that kind of pull on me to even consider picking up a drug in years and years. And so it kind of hit me, and I was driving, and I said, isn't it ironic that I'm going to be doing this interview tonight, and here these addictions are right present with me today, you know. So, but it shows how strong addiction is. I think most Americans are carb addicted, whether they know it or want to admit it. They are, because I've talked to people and they're like, oh well, I just love my carbs too much, and I'm like, me too, me too, me too. I mean, I was going and eating a pint of ice cream every day last summer. It's not healthy, not good for you, and I'm grateful that through this 100 days, I don't want to do that. Today was an exception, so I had that moment, and it's passed. But I mean, I'm not going to act on it, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give in.
So, just to explore that a little bit more, there's a very different kind of resolve that comes when you're doing carnivore, right? It's a lot
Mhm.
easy might not be the right word, but it's like it's just more straightforward to kind of have that feeling of, no, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
cheat. I'm not gonna. Under normal circumstances, on a regular diet, it would be much easier to, as the words you used earlier were, just throw in the towel. It would be much
Mhm.
easier just to go, well, I'm gonna give into this, right?
Mhm. It was a lot easier to do that when I was doing keto, and that's what made me jump into carnivore, because I knew just from that week long of doing the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, you see a difference that quickly. At least I did. I saw a difference between eating in keto one week and doing beef, butter, bacon, eggs the next week. You can see the results almost immediately. And that's what I love about carnivore, is most of us start to feel and see results of the weight loss, physical ailments healing right away, and mentally, I know if I did throw in the towel, or if I did have that cheat meal, I would be a million times worse tomorrow. you know, and that's what can spin you out. I mean, we have a saying in recovery: one is too many, and 1,000 is never enough. And I use that now with food. It's the same adage. If I pick up a carb or a bag of Doritos, or if I have that ice cream, it's not going to stop at that first bag of ice cream, or that first bag of Doritos, or the first pint of ice cream. I'm going to want it, every day. And I think literally, like, fast food places probably put something in your food to make it a little bit addictive, because you see the line at Chick-fil-A going around the block at lunchtime. People are addicted to fast food, that lifestyle. They don't know how carnivore can benefit them. I didn't even realize the benefit of what carnivore could do until I did it, and there's no looking back now. There's no going back. And
Mm.
the other thing I want to say is, like, when you're eating carbs and stuff, you're looking for something to satisfy you, right? You're looking to fill something, and so when I would have a cheat day, I could go to Chick-fil-A and have ice cream or whatever, but I would still not feel satisfied. The thing that I noticed about carnivore, like, I hadn't eaten today just because I was upset, not because, just kind of lost my appetite, but I started to get it back, and right before I came on with you, and I hadn't eaten anything. So I had a couple pieces of bacon, and that's taking it all away. It's taking that thought away. I don't need anything satiating or to fill me up, because the food, the proper food that you're putting in you, does that for you. If you're not putting proper food in, your body's going to be screaming for it. It's going to be screaming for the proper nutrients and what it needs, which is why that's a pattern. People keep going for more and more and more, because they're not giving their bodies what it needs. Those 2 pieces of bacon were just what I needed, to come on, and my stomach's not growling, and I can be centered in talking to you. And
I
so,
think that's one of the better things that I've noticed for myself, is like you can focus and concentrate so much better
yeah.
just with a small amount of food.
Mhm.
It doesn't
Mhm.
it doesn't need to be like, I don't have to eat a plate full of
Right.
something to
Yeah.
feel like,
Yeah.
and the feeling of being full is very different as well.
It is very different. I love the saying, Dr. Berry says it, Dr. Shafee says it, eat until you're comfortably full. Like, I love that, and it's amazing how little food fills you up, because I started to get my appetite back about an hour, and 2 pieces of bacon, and I'm fine right now. So you don't need a lot. And I do think I might be under eating a little bit, as I listen to some people. Like, I have not, I'm going to be honest, I haven't gone to the doctor, and I haven't done blood work. I got addicted to my pain medicine from a horrible back surgery. I don't have a lot of trust in the medical community, if you want, and I'm not saying that that's for everybody, but that's for me. My back surgeon told me that I would be on narcotics for the rest of my life, that I would have to be on them, and my addiction really spun out from that. And so, again, there's big money in the pharmacy industry. I have gotten off all my medications. I wasn't on any narcotics, but I was on a blood pressure medication, and I've gotten completely off that. And I take nothing now. I'm on absolutely nothing. And I weaned off it. I'd been on that for 30 years, since the early 90s. And I asked the doctor to wean me off of it slowly. And he was actually, so I did go see a doctor a couple of years ago, because I got off this, but he weaned me off it over about 4 months, and I haven't had to go back on. But I can tell you, when I was doing keto last year, and I did have those times when I was cheating, I could feel, I could feel it instantly. I could feel like my blood pressure went up and my heart was racing almost instantly, So that's another thing that carnivore, I think, can really help people with, is to get you off medications, or at least limit what you're on. It does heal. I'm evidence of that with the heart medicine, my shoulders, my knee, just in 100 days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so fast, just 100 days.
102.
102. So, like, do you get questions from people about this? Is anyone saying, what are you doing this crazy meat thing for?
I do. Like, we had one of our sales meetings about a month ago, and people were dumbfounded in the meeting, like, you only eat meat, and the one girl sitting across from me, her jaw dropped, and she's like, wait, you don't eat vegetables or fruit? And I'm like, no, just meat. And my boss got done, and he's like, that's impressive. He said, Joe Rogan did that. He listens to Joe Rogan. And I said, yeah, I know. But they can see the evidence of it, because they've seen me. I've lost 30 pounds, probably. I haven't weighed myself in a little bit, but maybe a little bit more in 102 days. I had another girlfriend. I got sick, for like 4 or 5 days. And she said, Sally, you're sick because you're carnivore. Just stop eating meat and eat fruits and veggies for a week, and you'll feel better. And I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with why I'm not feeling well. So people, I have to laugh, because it's just that they're not educated. They're so conditioned to eating fruits and vegetables that when you try to tell them that they're not healthy for you, they can't buy into it. I started watching Dr. Shafee right when I started doing this, and he, that video that he has, plants are trying to kill you. I send that to people. He's got a short on it, and I don't think people watch. I don't think people are going to resort to doing this unless they find it, and they find a need. Kind of like my addiction. I didn't get clean until I did it for myself, until I wanted to. I had to physically and really want 100% to get clean and never use again. And it's the same with food. I had to stop the sugar addiction and the carb addiction, and I had to jump in and make that commitment to myself. You have to want it, and then you have to follow through and do it. But it takes consequences to get somebody to that point. Usually people have to figure that out through trial and error, or through searching for weight loss or healing or something. I think people have to find out and prove it to themselves. That's what I had to do. I wasn't trying to prove that carnivore didn't work, but I was trying to prove that it would work for me if I committed to it. if that makes sense.
Yeah, I find a lot of people have success on carnivore when they have no other options left.
Hmm.
When they've tried everything, like you say, you've been on the Jenny Craig, the Weight Watchers, the Eat Less, Move More, the vegan, vegetarian. We've tried them all. Nothing's worked. I'm either staying the same as I am, or I'm putting weight on, and it comes down to, well, okay, well, I've got no other option. Maybe this will do something.
Yeah. And that's where I was, because I was gaining weight and I knew it was going to rapidly, I was going to gain all my weight back unless I stopped it, So um, I stopped it, So I don't see myself going back to keto. I want to continue doing this. I mean, if I've had this fantastic of results in 102 days, what's it going to be when I get to 200 days and 300 days, Um, and I can maybe start working out, after, like I said, after being able to work in my garden. I'd like to be able to do more. I couldn't even walk through the grocery store. I was limping full time whenever I was walking, and now I don't have a limp anymore. And so I'm going to be 59 in a couple months, and I like being active. I'm a go, go, go kind of person. And like I said, I was always athletic. So, this has healed me to the point where I can do more and more. Than I'd like to just take it to the next level.
Mm. So you mentioned that there was a bit more weight that you wanted to lose, but let's
Mm-hmm.
assume that the no more weight ever came off. Would it still be worth it for you to continue with this way of eating just to manage, or just to
Absolutely.
have no
Yeah,
pain?
absolutely. I'm not going to go back. Like, most of the time when I eat something wrong, it affects me, in my digestion and bloating and everything. I would, even if I didn't lose any more weight, I would continue eating this way, just based on how I feel and based on how it's healed me physically. So I can't imagine it not, even if I didn't lose any more weight, I can't imagine that the healing is going to stop here if I continue. Because I still have some pain. I was sore Sunday night after working in the garden. I had a little bit of pain in my knee, but the fact that I could be out there for 4 hours and standing on my feet, I wasn't even able to stand for more than 20 minutes before, so it's already miraculous, miraculously better. So even if I don't lose any more weight, I would think that my healing would continue. So, and I don't foresee that I wouldn't lose any more weight. I think I always get to where I am right now and hit a plateau every time. So it must be a stubborn weight, but I hope to lose 15, 20 more. If I don't, I'm okay with that.
Nice. So if a friend comes to you and says, "Look, I want to give this a try," what advice would you give them so that they can kind of stick with carnivore?
I did have a friend that did that. He and his wife jumped into doing it. I think they're like day 30 now. And he said I just inspired him with having that success. I gave him advice. He's kind of like me. I don't think he took it. I said I would probably do like 2 weeks of keto, then jump in. Don't go from eating a lot of carbs into day one. But I think they went straight into it. I gave him a lot of the channels to follow. I gave him some advice on what I ate, what I didn't eat. I told him in the beginning, it's really important to get your electrolytes in. Most people are magnesium and potassium deficient, especially when you're first starting. So I recommended Element to him and Salty, which I still drink. I have my watermelon Element that I'm drinking, and I don't drink those every day, but I did, and I needed them in the beginning, and I could feel it in the beginning. When I drank them, I could feel it, kind of giving me energy. So, he told me over the weekend that he had a cheat day and ate a watermelon, and I said, "Brother, you're not going to give up. You're not giving up on the carnivore lifestyle." He's like, "No, just a treat." So hopefully, I hope he got back on track. And if he didn't, that's okay. You know, I still love him. You know, like I said, this diet isn't for everybody. But I think if people stay with it and stick to it, they'll get results, you know, even the same results I had and even better. I mean, I've seen a lot of your videos and a lot of other people's testimonies of healing all kinds of diseases and ailments. It's not just a weight loss. It's not, I shouldn't even call it a diet because it's just a way of eating. It's just a new lifestyle. It's not really a diet. It's just become part of my lifestyle.
So, Sally, do you have any social media or YouTube or anything if people want to reach out to you?
I have a YouTube channel. It's not a carnivore channel. It's called Sally Saved from Sin, and I post nightly prayers. Like, I'm a believer. I have strong faith, and I don't put a lot of content out, but I do post a nightly prayer every night. You know, people are interested in something like that. So I'm thinking about possibly venturing into having some type of carnivore channel. So maybe a little bit down the road, I'll consider doing that because I do find it interesting. I mean, I could listen to these people's testimonies all day long. You know, it's how we relate to one another. I think the cool thing about your channel is for every person that you have on, there's going to be somebody that's their same story. You know, and I think our testimonies are so powerful to other people when you just see normal, common, everyday people, you know, share how they've had success with it. Because it's one thing to see successful doctors talk about carnivore, but when you see just successful people, you know, like you and I, telling our success stories, I think that can have a big impact.
Yeah, so I'll link to your channel below.
Okay.
And Sally, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated it.